This is my randomology, and today we're taking Lovecraft to school. Now, one of the big influences that I had when I was learning to write and really getting into literature was when I discovered the writings of HP Lovecraft. Now, I'm going to be very clear on this. I am very well aware of the man's feelings towards anybody who was not Anglo-Saxon. The man was an unapologetic racist. It's something that's actually evident in a lot of his writing. However, you can't discount the effect that his writing had. The genre that he didn't create cosmic horror, but he certainly codified and helped make it popular, and that genre has gone on to influence a slew of people, everyone from Stephen King to Anne Rice to Guillermo del Toro. So what I'm going to do right now is not necessarily heap praise on the man himself, but rather on the works that he put out, which have influenced a lot of people, myself included. Now, the thing that I wanted to show you right now is how to incorporate the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, or just cosmic horror in general, into your classroom. If you're an educator, this is something that you can do. One of the things that I like to do whenever we're starting an English class, and I'm going to be teaching students how to analyze literature, how to read critically, there's a story by Lovecraft that I think is absolutely perfect to get them started, because the story itself seems very simple. I mean, compared to some of the alien monstrosities in some of Lovecraft's work, this story looks outright fairy tale-ish. But that's what makes it so good, because there's actually a lot of things to look at and analyze, and the students are not aware of it when they first read it. And the story in question is the Cats of Ulthar. Now, here's the way the lesson works. First day of class, it's syllabus day. There's nothing for them to have read at that point. We go over what the class is about, yada, yada, yada. And then I give them a homework assignment. I give them a copy of the Cats of Ulthar, either something online that they can download, or I put them in touch with a link that takes them to one of the many, many websites that have the story for free to read. There's actually one down there if you want to follow along as well. All I have them do is read the story. That's it. I just tell them, read the story, and we're going to discuss it in class next time. And most of them do. It's a short story. I mean, on this anthology that I have right here, it starts on page 36, and it ends on page 38. It's like, it's here, and here. That's it. Oh, that's really blown out on the... Yeah, it's literally 3 pages. It's short. Now, I want to go through the story very carefully, and just kind of point out what it is that I hope the students pick up on. So let's go ahead and get started with the Cats of Ulthar. It is said that in Ulthar, which lies beyond the river Sky, no man may kill a cat. In this I can verily believe as I gaze upon him who sitteth purring before the fire, for the cat is cryptic and close to strange things which men cannot see. He is the soul of antique Egyptus, and bearer of tales from forgotten cities in Meroe and Ophir. He is the kin of the jungle's lords, and heir to the secrets of hoary and sinister Africa. The Sphinx is his cousin, and he speaks her language, but he is more ancient than the Sphinx, and remembers that which she hath forgotten. Now that is just the first paragraph. Now once class starts, I have the students start breaking things down for me. There's a few things in this opening paragraph that should stick out to them once I point it out. First of all, the language that's being used. You know, who the hell writes Egyptus? Lovecraft, that's who. Or somebody who is just in love with antiquated spelling. Also, this phrase here, he is the kin of the jungle's lords and heir to the secrets of hoary and sinister Africa. Ooh, that is a very Heart of Darkness line right there, if I ever heard one. So this is very much based in a time when Africa is seen as this mysterious, dark continent full of dark secrets. Now, more importantly, we're getting a setting here. This is supposed to be set in Ulthar. What is Ulthar? We don't know yet. In Ulthar, before ever the Burgesses forbade the killing of cats, there dwelt an old cotter and his wife, who delighted to trap and slay the cats of their neighbors. Why they did this I know not, save that many hate the voice of the cat in the night, and take it ill that cats should run stealthily about yards and gardens at twilight. But whatever the reason, this old man and woman took pleasure in trapping and slaying every cat which came near to their hovel, and from some of the sounds heard after dark, many villagers fancied that the manner of slaying was exceedingly peculiar. But the villagers did not discuss such things with the old man and his wife because of the habitual expression on the withered faces of the two, and because their cottage was so small and so darkly hidden under the spreading oaks at the back of the neglected yard. In truth, much as the owners of cats hated these odd folk, they feared them more, and instead of berating them as brutal assassins, merely took care that no cherished pet or mouser should stray towards the remote hovel under the dark trees. Even though some unavoidable oversight, a cat was missed, and sounds heard after dark, the loser would lament impotently, or console himself by thanking fate that it was not one of his children who had thus vanished, for the people of Ulthar were simple, and knew not whence it is all cats first came. We're already getting set up with a problem here. Old couple lives in the edge of town. They don't like cats. They come to the yard. They kill them. We also get a little bit of repetition here. The first paragraph said that people are not aware of what cats really are, the secrets that they know, their lineage. And this second paragraph, much longer, ends on a similar sentiment. The people of Ulthar also don't know this. They don't know what cats are and what they can do. So the fact that it's been repeated twice now, and it comes usually at the end of a paragraph, should clue students in that this is probably an important plot point. The people of Ulthar don't know about cats. One day a caravan of strange wanderers from the south entered the narrow cobbled streets of Ulthar. Dark wanderers they were, and unlike the other roving folk who passed through the village twice every year. In the marketplace they told fortunes for silver and bought gay beads from the merchants. What was the land of these wanderers none could tell, but it was seen that they were given to strange prayers, and that they had painted on the sides of their wagons strange figures with human bodies and the heads of cats, hawks, rams, and lions. And the leader of the caravan wore a headdress with 2 horns and a curious disc betwixt the horns. Now, who are these people exactly? Now that's a question that students should have asked themselves when they read that paragraph, and we're going to go back to it because this is actually setting up both the main conflict and the main resolution. These dark wanderers, whoever they are, play a very important part in the story. There was in this singular caravan a little boy with no father or mother, but only a tiny black kitten to cherish. The plague had not been kind to him, yet had left him this small furry thing to mitigate his sorrow, and when one is young, one can find great relief in the lively antics of a black kitten. So the boy, whom the dark people called Meanies, smiled more often than he wept as he sat playing with his graceful kitten on the steps of an oddly painted wagon. And we finally get a named character, Meanies. Meanies, little boy, little orphan with a black cat. He seems positively adorable. You know, a little boy, nothing in the world, and just a little cat to keep him company. And if we've been paying attention, we probably know what's going to happen to that cat. And yes, if you have not read the story, what happens to the cat is exactly what you think is going to happen to the cat. On the 3rd morning of the wanderer's stay in Ulthar, Meanies could not find his kitten. And as he sobbed aloud in the marketplace, certain villagers told him of the old man and his wife, and of sounds heard in the night. And when he heard these things, his sobbing gave place to meditation, and finally to prayer. He stretched out his arms toward the sun, and prayed in a tongue no villager could understand, though indeed the villagers did not try very hard to understand, since their attention was mostly taken up by the sky, and the odd shapes and clouds were assuming. It was peculiar, but as the little boy uttered his petition, there seemed to form overhead the shadowy, nebulous figures of exotic things, of hybrid creatures crowned with horn-flanked discs. Nature is full of such illusions to impress the imaginative. What? Okay. A little magic. Interesting. Is it magic? Are the people seeing things? The text seems to suggest maybe they're seeing things, maybe they're not. But Meanies is taking direct action because someone took his cat. And once again, we get a little bit of repetition. The paragraph before this said that the leader of this caravan wore a headdress with horns and a disc in the middle, and it was adorned with images of half human, half animals. Likewise, this paragraph ends with apparently the clouds taking these shapes. Clearly, there's something that Lovecraft is trying to tell us, notice this. Okay, this is important. That night, the wanderers left Ulthar and were never seen again. And the householders were troubled when they noticed that in all the village there was not a cat to be found. From each hearth, the familiar cat had vanished. Cats large and small, black, gray, striped, yellow, and white. Old Cranon, the burgomaster, swore that the dark folk had taken the cats away in revenge for the killing of Meanies' kitten, and cursed the caravan and the little boy. But Nith, the lean notary, declared that the old cotter and his wife were more likely persons to suspect, for the hatred of cats was notorious and increasingly bold. Still no one durst complain to the sinister couple, even when little Atol, the innkeeper's son, vowed that he had, at twilight, seen all the Cats of Ulthar in that accursed yard under the trees, pacing very slowly and solemnly in a circle around the cottage, two abreast, as in performance of some unheard-of rite of beasts. The villagers did not know how much to believe from so small a boy, and though they feared that the evil pair had charmed the cats to their death, they preferred not to chide the old cotter till they met him outside the dark and repellent yard. Now, clearly something's happening to the old man and his wife, and the villagers don't know exactly what to make of this, but the disappearance of all their cats is now cause for alarm. Now they're going to confront the old man and his wife. Or are they? So Ulthar went to sleep in vain anger, and when the people awakened at dawn, behold, every cat was back at its accustomed hearth. Large and small, black, gray, striped, yellow, and white, none was missing. Very sleek and fat did the cats appear, and sonorous with purring content. The citizens talked with one another of the affair, and marveled not a little. Old Crannon again insisted that it was the dark folk who had taken them, since cats did not return alive from the cottage of the ancient man and his wife. But all agreed on one thing, that the refusal of all the cats to eat their portions of meat or drink their saucers of milk was exceedingly curious, and for 2 whole days the sleek, lazy Cats of Ulthar would touch no food, but only doze by the fire or in the sun. Now, a genre-savvy reader might probably guess what happened, but let's continue. It was fully a week before the villagers noticed that no lights were appearing at dusk in the windows of the cottage under the trees. Then the lean Nith remarked that no one had seen the old man or his wife since the night the cats were away. In another week, the burgomaster decided to overcome his fears and call at the strangely silent dwelling as a matter of duty, though in doing so he was careful to take with him Shang, the blacksmith, and Thule, the cutter of stone, as witnesses. And when they had broken down the frail door, they found only this: 2 cleanly picked human skeletons on the earthen floor, and a number of singular beetles crawling in the shadowy corners. Yep, the cats ate them. The cats ate the couple. I don't think we need to really analyze whether this is... The cats didn't want to eat because they were full. What did they eat? They ate the couple. Moving on. There was subsequently much talk among the burgesses of Ulthar. Zath, the coroner, disputed at length with Nith, the lean notary, and Crannon and Shag and Thule were overwhelmed with questions. Even little Atol, the innkeeper's son, was closely questioned, and given a sweetmeat as reward. They talked of the old cotter and his wife, of the caravan of dark wanderers, of small Meanies and his black kitten, of the prayer of Meanies and of the sky during that prayer, of the doings of the cats on the night of the caravan left, and of what was later found in the cottage under the dark trees in the repellent yard. And in the end, the burgesses passed that remarkable law which is told of by traders at Hatheg and discussed by travelers in Nir, namely, that in Ulthar, no man may kill a cat. And that's why you don't kill cats in Ulthar, because then the cats will eat you. Now here's the thing, this is a very seemingly simple story. I mean, aside from some of the names which are a little odd, there's really nothing too challenging about this story. I mean, you could read this in middle school and get the gist of it. There's a couple of vocabulary words like what's a burgomaster, things like that. But otherwise, it's very simple, very straightforward. Couples killing cats, caravan arrives, couple kills cat, caravan curses them, cats kill them. Very straightforward. Now, this is why this story is so good to teach literary analysis, because once I ask my students, hey, did you like this story? Did you not like the story? I usually get mixed responses. Some of them say, it sounded very simple. Some people say they enjoyed them. Some people thought it was creepy. But then we get to the question that usually just stumps everybody when I ask them, okay, let's start analyzing this. Somebody please tell me the setting of the story, place and time. And that's the first of many sets of blank stares I get, because somebody will inevitably say, like, oh, it's Ulthar. And I'll tell them, great, where is that? Where is Ulthar? Is it in the Midwest? Is it in New England? Is it in Germany? Is it in China? Is it in Australia? Because setting has a very big impact on how we go ahead and read this. Now, if you read Lovecraft at all, you know that Ulthar is a completely made-up place, but it is based on a real place. A lot of fictional places have a counterpart in reality. A lot of the countries in, the Game of Thrones are based on actual countries in Europe. Now, where is Ulthar set? Well, Lovecraft actually gives us a couple of clues as to the setting of this place. In the very first paragraph, the story says that the cat is descendant of hoary and sinister Africa. Now, somebody from Africa would not be using that language to describe the continent, so we can probably strike that out. A couple other things stick out. There doesn't appear to be anything in the way of advanced technology like cars or street lamps or anything like that. In fact, this appears to be a pre-industrial society. There's talk of a plague which killed Minisi's parents. In fact, some of the a burgomaster, some of the terms that are being used here to describe jobs and some of the names, they're European, or at least European adjacent for the most part. There's a lot of evidence that Ulthar might be set somewhere in Europe. And the fact that we don't have any talk of cars or electric lights or anything like that probably means that the story is set pre-1900 somewhere in Europe. Now, is this for real where the story is set? No. As far as I know, Ulthar is part of this dream cycle and this fantastic world which Lovecraft created for some of his stories. It's not a real place, but it is based on a real place, and that's going to be important for the next part, because the next thing that I asked my students is, who are these Dark Wanderers? Now again, Lovecraft gives us a couple of clues as to who they might be. The text says that they come from the south. Now, if we are assuming that Ulthar is set somewhere in Europe, probably somewhere in Germany, based on some of the names and some of the titles being used, them being from the south, the fact that they have a religion, it seems, where there are half animal, half humans, and their priest wears the horn with the disc and everything, that sounds a lot like the depiction of Egyptian deities, doesn't it? Especially if the fact that they are dark wanderers is not taken metaphorically, if it's taken more literal, dark as in, not dark as in mysterious, but dark as in complexion, they might be African. In fact, the fact that they are in a caravan traveling and telling fortunes, and apparently they are wanderers, leads me to believe that these Dark Wanderers are supposed to be stand-ins for Romani, or the Roma people. A lot of people call them gypsies. Gypsy is actually a pejorative term. The proper term actually is Roma or Romani. Now, there's a couple of things that we can start inferring based on this. Now, if Ulthar is supposed to be based on a version of Europe, and these are supposed to be Romani, then the Romani historically are not treated well almost anywhere. They're scapegoats for everything from diseases to theft to crimes wherever they go. So it's actually kind of interesting that they seem to be welcome with open arms into Ulthar, but maybe not, because some of the names on here, some of them are European, but a couple of them almost sound like they might be Asian. Again, not really Asian, but they have some of the same sounds, and they're definitely not European. So Ulthar appears to be based in some kind of weird fantasy version of Europe that's probably a lot more cosmopolitan. And the fact that they're not the first wanderers, that this appears to be a common thing, that, you know, traveling groups of people pass by here, means that, yeah, the people of Ulthar probably are a lot more accommodating to strangers. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any objection to the Dark Wanderers coming in and doing what they're doing. So, okay, here's my next question, and this is the part that really gets the students thinking. Did anything I say right now, is any of it true? Are these things that Lovecraft was thinking about when he wrote this? That this is going to be a fictional version of some pseudo-Germanic city? That these actually are supposed to be stand-ins for the Roma? I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I've read a lot of the man's work. I've read some of his letters. I don't know if I'm actually correct. At best, I'm guessing. But part of analyzing literature is not, am I right? Is this what the author was actually thinking about? Is this what the teacher wants me to think? All I've done right now is make a best guess based on the text itself. I'm basing my guesses on information within the text, and I'm walking you through the process from A to B to C. There are multiple ways to interpret any text. There's other interpretations of where Ulthar might be located. There's other interpretations of where the Dark Wanderers might be coming from. And those interpretations should be consistent with the text. You can have many, many ways of guessing where this is, where they are, and who the Wanderers are. And they're all perfectly valid. There is very rarely in literary analysis a wrong answer. the worst you can do is having an answer without sufficient evidence to back it up. And I think I provided enough evidence for my particular interpretation. One of many. But all of this is just kind of surface stuff. All I've really done is just kind of set up where I think the setting is located and how the setting affects the conflict. Now, here's the big question that I ask students when we get to this part of the discussion, and that is, okay, so the old couple killed Minisi's cat, and so Minis retaliated, and the cats acted, and then now the cats are protected. Now, here's my question to my students and to you watching this. Why did the cats just act this time? What was keeping the cats from striking back at the old man before? Why was this cat so important that divine intervention struck the couple down? Because remember what the text said. This has been going on for a long time. This could not have been the first child to lose a cat. All right? This could not have been the first family whose beloved pet or beloved mouser got killed. Other people for years, decades even, have lost beloved members of their family to this couple. What made this different? And to answer that, I need to go back to something that I mentioned earlier. Lovecraft was really racist. And when I say racist, I don't mean, oh, it was the 1920s, you know, people were kind of racist back then. No, I mean, even for the 1920s, Lovecraft was really racist. As in, somebody in the 1920s would have looked at him and said, damn, that guy's racist. And having read a lot of Lovecraft's other stories and poems and some of his essays, which I'm not going to mention their names because the titles themselves are really racist, it's very strange to me that the sympathetic character here is a little boy who could very well be Roma. Because again, the Roma are not seen kindly in Europe or in Asia, in a lot of places where they travel and live. Again, historically, they've been scapegoats for a lot of society's problems. So it's very weird to me that Lovecraft decided to make that the protagonist, the person we're supposed to be feeling sorry for and then rooting for when he gets his revenge. Because in nowhere else in Lovecraft's work does that ever appear. Anybody who is not white is usually depicted as subhuman. The only other time that I can think of in Lovecraft's body of work where somebody who is not white is put up on a pedestal and seen as good and intelligent and noble was literally a fungus alien. I'm not joking. That's not hyperbole. So knowing that about the author, then this seems very out of place. So what exactly is going on? I think it has to do with why this was the cat killing that, snapped the proverbial camel's back. What made this killing different? This cat belonged to an outsider, not just an outsider, but an outsider that had been welcomed into the community. Again, as far as I can tell, the city gets these visitors semi-regularly. This doesn't appear to be something that happens, every couple of years. They invited them to the city. They had their carnival, whatever it was, and then they left, and both parties were fine with it. But the couple killed a guest's cat. Why would that be such a big deal? Well, this is where a little bit of historical research comes into effect. If you look at the history of hospitality, remember that there was a time not that long ago historically where if you wanted to travel from one city to another, you had to travel on the road, and unless there was an inn or something, you had to stay at somebody's house. You had to find lodging somewhere. And welcoming somebody into your house that you don't know, you're taking a big leap of faith. The idea of hospitality, of sacred hospitality, was a big deal and still remains a big deal in a lot of places in the world. In a lot of places in the Middle East, for example, these customs of protecting a guest or offering help when help is requested will override everything from local laws to even Islam, because those rules are considered to be far more ancient and they supersede the idea of hospitality. Even in Judeo-Christian mythology and beliefs, hospitality, the protection of your host and the host protection of a guest, is also very important. Lucifer was cast down not necessarily because of his pride, but because he dared to speak up against his host, right? Sodom and Gomorrah were not destroyed because, the people there were sinners necessarily, being, debauchery and all that, but because they dared to raise their hands at somebody's guests. They refused hospitality. Like I said, for example, Islam, for example, also teaches, if a man shall enter your tent and eat your salt, even though he be an infidel, you will protect him. So this idea is pretty universal. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a society that didn't have some version of this, that when somebody is a guest in your home being a very general term in this case, it is your job to make sure that they are well taken care of. Now, how far that hospitality goes and what that requires of the host and the guest vary very much, but the general concept is there. In the story, I believe the reason that divine intervention finally struck down the couple is because they betrayed the city's hospitality. The city welcomed the Dark Wanderers, and the old couple broke that trust by killing the cat. Now, is this what Lovecraft intended? I don't know. I have no idea. But it's an interpretation based on the text, background on the author, and a little bit of historical research. And I think I might be onto something here, because Lovecraft was very racist, but more in a broader sense, he was xenophobic. He was very much a traditionalist. He was somebody who loved tradition and the old ways of doing things. So I think that Lovecraft might be somebody who looked at these rules of hospitality and also looked at them like these codes that were very much, a thing that everybody should agree to. And the fact that he made the protagonist basically a member of the Romani and made it so that we should feel sad for him because this was done means that even for Lovecraft, even if the target of this breaking of hospitality was somebody who was a member of a group who was traditionally seen as a scapegoat and was blamed for all of society's ills, even if it's that person, Lovecraft is saying in this story, no, you still don't do that. That is barbaric. That is the kind of thing that will have the gods strike you down. Now again, am I right? I don't know, but I have evidence to back me up. When I've had this exercise with students, I tell them, this is my interpretation of it. This is my reading of it. You can have any number of other interpretations. I tend to look at things through a sociological lens. You can very much look at this through a religious lens. You can very much look at it through, the lens of conflict. I had a student tell me one time, sir, maybe it's not so much about hospitality, but about the idea of, don't pick fights when you don't know who you're picking a fight with. This could be, you could read this almost like an anti-bullying tract. I've had students give me religious readings of this story as well. There's any number of ways to read it. And again, they may be different, but that doesn't mean that they are in conflict with each other. And do we know that this is what the author intended? No, we don't. But as long as we have the text to back up what we're saying, we're still on the right track. That's literary analysis. I guess you could almost say that literary analysis is like coming up with fan theories, except you actually have to have citations. So anyway, short little lesson for you if you're an educator. Cats of Ulthar. Fantastic story to get students really thinking about literature and what it is. Because again, we got all of that from something which you could read in middle school. Not a lot of hard vocabulary, really short, and you could go for hours and hours and hours trying to interpret what is going on in the story. So if you're an educator, I hope this enlightened you. I hope you maybe pick something that you can use in your classes. If you happen to be just a Lovecraft fan, hey, tell me what you think. What do you think is going on in this story? Do you think I'm onto something? Or do you think I'm just completely off the rails? I don't know. I think I'm right though. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later.